Good evening, everybody. I am the Cynic, and this video was inspired by two users. One you all know, Bernard Chapin from Chapin's Inferno, and another by the user Foul Troy, both talking about working within the system, known as our government structure. I'll be frank. My problem doesn't really derive from the way society treats men as opposed to how it treats women. Matter of fact, my biggest issue doesn't really take women into consideration at all. It stems from the unthinking, overpussified, overprotective, lackluster, and underachieving mindset of the public at large, who are more concerned with things like football and Black Friday sales, rather than what goes on in the chambers of men and women who control the laws they live by. And before I continue, I would just like to get uncalled out of the way, which is, not all people are like that. Why? Because in every goddamn video I make, I keep getting that one common sense lacking retard who just has to put their 2 cents in about how not all people / women are like that, how they just cannot accept generalizations and accept rules with exceptions. Beginning to question if I should just make that part of my entry. I wonder what that would be like. You are about to listen to an audio presentation dedicated to one man's generalizations and observations about the state of the Western world. A world where the red pill exposes the traditionalists and feminists working hand in hand to maintain their control over the male population, working longer and harder to have their assets stolen in divorce, thrown in prison over false rape and violence allegations, and parental alienation and unfair family courts. A world where freedom is valued above equality, and where self-preservation supersedes a few fleeting moments of instant gratification, and where we all know that not all women are like that. You have entered the Nullwald Zone. Nah, that'd be stupid. That said, the majority of Westerners are far too enveloped in their victim complex about what was done to them and how unfair such events were. Only a small few are willing to work to get ahead in life, and even fewer consider breaking away from this dying, parasitic system altogether. As I'm sure many of you have noticed, there's a startling, though very happy trend of men going their own way being preppers, or just very prepared men. Even if society shouldn't fall, the men who've taken these precautions have not only demonstrated the foresight to have an insurance policy for just such an occasion, especially in these difficult economic times, but have also demonstrated gaining the ability to walk away from this parasitic system we live in. Skills such as growing your own food, hunting, trapping, skinning, disembowelment, living comfortably without on-demand luxuries, a degree of self-sufficiency, and so on are always good to have when the desire to truly break away is taken from simple talk to full-on action. Oh yes, I know, some MGTOW don't really want to leave the societal system, just leave the system of dating and interacting with women in the damning and financially destructive ritual known as marriage. I don't really care though, I just wanted to address that before the comments could. And while it may not be MGTOW I think about, this brings us back to the victim mentality of the majority of those who inhabit the West. Everyone has to be offended over something. Everybody has to bark about how they aren't like that, or how wrong I am because they are the exception to the rule, or so they claim, and that because they are the exception, the rule is wrong. I suppose I'll give an example of what I'm talking about. You hear the masses continually complaining about our joke of a political structure while blaming our even bigger joke of a banking system. Yet what action have they taken to rectify the problems they perceive to have? And before I get all the flame, hear me out, because you're about to learn a little something about me personally. I was part of both the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street. I thought these would both be beneficial in fighting against the bailout / corrupt politicians. I was also a Republican delegate elected at the precinct convention, with the sole intent of going to the state and casting my vote for Ron Paul, or another delegate who had his leanings. I didn't proceed past the county, but I tried. I worked within the system and attended the county caucus and the state convention. I bore witness as the entire political party system and its rules were spat upon, as suggestions which held favor against the status quo were steamrolled past, even though the majority at the time wanted to change the status quo. We, the Republican Party of El Paso County, of the El Paso County Caucus, went utterly ignored in our desire for change. The video of the Republican convention was obviously steamrolled on national television, where the teleprompter already had the answer regardless of the actual vote. Yeah, that wasn't an isolated incident. The point I'm trying to make is that change within the system has shown both fruitless and overtly non-tolerated. And when I say change, I mean altering something of substance, change of the status quo, not switching around a few R's and D's in front of a few senators' names, like the type of lube makes a difference when we're all getting our proverbial asses pounded. I've worked within the system. I saw the system fight with everything it had. There's no changing it. Not with real substance anyway, which is to actually stop and reverse the uncountable intrusions against civil liberties, not just bitch about them for a month and then have the issue dropped for a new scandal or crisis and not being brought up again save under the breaths of certain people who don't forget. And before you go on a tirade about how I'm just mad my candidate didn't get into office, go ahead and watch this video. Get past the Alex Jones bit and you'll see how working within the system works out. No, I'm not kidding. Go and click the video right now. Right here. This is why I would rather live off-grid. The system refuses to change, and complaining about it has done me no favors, much like many of today's women behaving like immature children whose politically correct feelings can't be questioned. I found it better simply to not be around them than sit and stew about how unfair the dynamic is. And to expand past just politics, for all the pissing and moaning of the American people, for all the wrong house raids, for all the family dogs shot, for all the good cops who looked the other way as bad cops committed their brutality, for all the NSA spying, Constitution shredding legislation like the Patriot Act and NDAA, indefinite detention without charge or trial provision, yeah, you remember that? The banker bailouts, the whole plethora of bullshit that destroys the very fabric of what it means to hold freedom and liberty that people claim to want. Through all of this, there has been nothing of substance done. The Tea Party, you've been tread upon. Now what? Occupy Wall Street, you've been evicted. Now what? Ron Paul supporters, your candidate was thrown under the bus. Now what? Detroit is bankrupt. Now what? The debt has gone over $17 trillion. Now what? America participated in aiding and putting in tyrants into countries like Iran and Chile. Now what? The cop who beat Kelly Thomas to death was acquitted. Now what? I could go on. I guess my deal is I don't conveniently forget these things. I don't just push them aside with deflections like, not all cops are like that, or not all politicians are like that, or, well, we can change the system from within. If we can't, then there'll be anarchy and chaos and blah, blah, blah. If the mess of the 2012 Republican nomination caucus and primaries were any indication about working within the system to make change, and how well that works out, it has demonstrated to me that nothing of substance will ever come. That is my absolute reason for going my own way. The people, for all of their grandstanding, have done jack shit. And what really gets me, what really grinds my gears about the whole fucking thing, is whenever I bring it up to them, they demonstrate the sheep mentality by asking me for solutions, to make me think for them, admitting that they are too fucking retarded to use their own reasoning skills and make their own way in life against a system that doesn't give an honest, husky fuck about them. They don't realize or don't care to realize that no matter how much deflection they give out or the amount of excuses they have ready and in the works, at the end of the day, their world is falling apart. I know I'm not talking about just the fall of society. I'm talking about lost jobs, lost pensions, lost benefits, lost 401ks, inflation, price increases, and the like. At the end of the day, these problems that they face, they don't go away. And the majority would rather watch football or some other bullshit rather than attempt to fix these issues. And what's worse, they bring children into this world to deal with that mess. The majority of these people today refuse to clean up. They leave it to their children. Fuck Junior. Just bring him in. And I want to make this clear right now. If you've acted solely on what you think you're allowed to do and with nothing to show for it, I mean nothing of substance to change the system, then you're just as much a problem as the unthinking majority. If a solution, quote-unquote, voting, protesting, marching, and occupying isn't working, it's the very definition of insanity to continue doing it and hoping for change. But no, most will just sit there with a defeated look about them, feeling too sorry for themselves and their failed ventures, and thinking, well, I tried, with nothing of substance accomplished. I suppose what I'm getting at here is, I'm tired of victims. I'm tired of seeing a bunch of people sit around and feel sorry for themselves for being stuck in a system they do nothing but either complain about or use multiple failed tactics to try and garner desired change. Are there good things about it? Yeah. Are many just so heavily reliant and indoctrinated in that they can't even fathom surviving outside of it? You betcha. But I'm done with the excuses. I'm done with the useless complaining from people who have no real solutions. This will be my last video on why I don't care if society crumbles. I've decided on the change I'm going to make for myself, and while it may not benefit society, or maybe it will benefit the one person my life most directly impacts, myself. The day I leave this so-called civilization in favor of either a small commune or complete self-sufficiency for as long as I can do it will be the happiest day of my life. It will be the day I renounce my title as a cynic and allow my life to truly begin. Even if I do have to deal with the taxman, even if I do have to deal with the code inspector, even if I do have to deal with a few moments of uncertainty in terms of food, water, and medical care, it's far more appealing than living my life in this world full of useful idiots. Happily, the feeling for them to me is mutual. Oh, and remember, Napalt. Not all people are as I've described. Are you one of them? If you get a little defensive, I might think you are. I am the Cynic, everybody. Have a nice day.